How do you overcome shame and embarrassment from your past dating choices? For example, falling for narcissists, having inappropriate crushes like married men, or being the toxic one yourself. Sounds oddly specific, right? Well, I hear these things all the time in my world, and there is nothing to feel embarrassed about. So, this episode is here to help you work through those feelings of shame so that you can move on to healthier, dreamier relationships. In today's episode, we're going to dissect the 4 most common dating choices that lead to shame and embarrassment, dissect them so that you don't have to feel bad about it anymore, plus a 3-step call to action to start taking steps to healing these wounds. Right after this intro. Welcome to the Inner Child Podcast. Now with 2 million downloads, I help high achievers recover from painful relationships and childhood trauma. Let's heal together on Season 2 of the Inner Child Podcast. Hey bestie, and welcome back to the Inner Child Podcast. I am your host, Gloria Zhang, therapist, dating coach, and author, and we have an excellent question that popped up today. This was actually submitted by a listener on an Instagram poll I did. This is such a common thing I hear all the time, especially with women I start working with initially. This sort of shame and deep embarrassment that comes from our past relationships, our past dating decisions. And it can be paralyzing to move forward. And because we're too scared to talk about this to people, we keep it inside, and then the thoughts just get more wacky and dramatic. And because we're not talking about it to anyone, they start to fester and get worse. So I thought it'd be really helpful to dissect 4 of the most common dating choices that I hear that leads to this feeling of, oh, this is so embarrassing. I'm so ashamed of this. I'm going to completely dissect them for you so that you don't have to feel bad about this anymore. And at the very end, we've got a 3-step call to action. And by the way, on the day that this comes out, we have finally opened doors to my brand new $12 program called the Lovable Women 5-Day Accelerator. Go from doormat to dream girl in 5 days. So if you are on the wait list or if you are just itching to get in, sign up today. If you sign up before Thursday, you will qualify for our grand opening bonuses. So that's super exciting. Anyways, why don't we dive into these 4 common dating choices that lead to embarrassment. Number 1, falling for the wrong person. Falling for a narcissist, falling for someone that you tell all your friends, oh, he's amazing. And then 2 weeks later, you unfortunately need to update them and let them know that it in fact was not amazing, that it was absolutely terrible. All right. You know what? This has happened to almost all of us here who have listened to this podcast, folks that I've worked with inside Soulmate. And at some point, you really just have to acknowledge that inner child wounds run very deep. What happened to you as a kid that produced these patterns, that is not your fault. It's only your responsibility moving forward. And in order to move forward, you just need to have that self-compassion for yourself when it comes to these decisions, all right? People like narcissists and abusive partners, they have a way of getting into our heads. They know exactly what buttons to push. They know exactly what to say if we still have those unhealed wounds. And that is why we are so susceptible. All right. So instead of beating yourself up over this, focus on healing those wounds so that you no longer become susceptible or a target for these people. All right. Nothing to feel bad about. Now I'm going to expand on this on point number 2. Having inappropriate crushes or going after people that we're not really supposed to or off-limits partners. This can include past decisions that included being the other woman for married men, falling for people who aren't attracted to us, falling for bosses or colleagues, or having crushes on our friends' partners. And I know it's a taboo thing to talk about openly, but how else are we going to work through this? And so some of the women I work with inside Soulmate not only have their partners cheated on them, but they have also found themselves in situations where they have also cheated on their partners or been the other woman. And I have no judgment towards that because I know what happens to people when we approach love from a place of pain. And I know not everybody is as open-minded and understanding about this, but that's why it's so important for me to share that with you. We will never make you feel bad about past choices. In fact, what we do instead is help you understand why you have those attractions in the first place. And this is what I'm going to share with you today. For example, if you feel attracted to men who are married or people who are already in relationships, it's coming from a place of abandonment and not enoughness. And the unconscious thought that happens in our heads is, if I can win the love of this person, then it will prove to me that I'm better than his wife or his partner, and that it will prove to me that I am good enough. Nobody wants to have these inclinations. We don't want to have these attractions. But this is what happens to us, especially if you grew up in a family where infidelity was part of the picture. Then we subconsciously carry those dynamics as blueprints, and we can bring them into our adult relationships. There's a lot of pain there. Now, the other reason why we might choose someone who is inappropriate or taken or married is because we also don't feel deserving of being chosen. So we feel attracted to someone who's never going to choose us. We're always going to be second to their primary partner. We're always going to be like the dirty little secret. Nobody wants to feel that way, you understand? It's coming from a place of, I feel so unworthy and unlovable and so chronically abandoned that I don't deserve to be someone's choice number one. I'm going to be choice number two. And these internal complexes we have actually influence our attraction, what we feel romantically and sexually attracted to. Now, these things can all change, and that's actually what I work with. Is I do the healing stuff so that what people feel attracted to actually changes. But that's a whole other topic for another time. But if you're hearing this, I want you to understand why you have those impulses. Approach all of this. It's about healing the wounds where these decisions come from so we can have better relationships and attractions that we actually want. And that's what compassion is all about. So I hope now you have a bit of deeper understanding and less shame about where these come from, and know that it's very normal to talk about this in my world. It's as normal as talking about what kind of coffee you had this morning. Number 3 common dating choice that leads to shame and embarrassment is staying with a toxic partner for way too long. No shame about this either. Here's a statistic for you. On average, it takes a woman 7 to 8 times to leave an abusive relationship before it's for good. Meaning, she will leave and then get back together with an abusive partner 7 to 8 times before it becomes final. Why? Because trauma bonding and these hot and cold dynamics in unhealthy relationships literally intoxicate us. It completely disrupts our nervous system. It really messes with our minds. And it's not as easy to just snip the cord and get up and go. If you've been in one, you know exactly what I mean. You might read a book about healthy relationships and feel the courage to walk away. But what if that person has cut you off from your family and friends? What if they've isolated you? What if they've done damage on your self-perception and self-esteem? What if you were financially dependent on them? There's so many layers of manipulation that can happen in unhealthy relationships, and it takes a long time to actually leave for good. Okay? And even if you weren't in an abusive relationship, these dynamics change who we are, and the wounds that they reopen go so deep. So please, my love, do not feel bad about staying longer and not being able to leave. It's so easy to judge someone else and say, oh, why didn't she just get up and go, until you've been through it yourself. So I want you to know this statistic. And again, I hear all the time people who don't leave until sometimes 10 years, 20 years later. And then that's where they're starting. It's okay. Have compassion and understand how deeply these dynamics really affect us. Number 4, common dating choice that leads to shame and embarrassment when you are the toxic one. So I've shared this in the last episode. If you've been hurt so much in the past, sometimes you've turned into the toxic one, right? Where you might cheat, you might throw dishes at the wall, you do all of these things, feel like you're becoming the person that you didn't want to be. And again, this is what happens when we have trauma. And I want to add some nuance here that we're not excusing our behavior from trauma, but we're adding a layer of understanding. You can still take responsibility and make meaningful action to heal yourself and change without beating yourself up to a pulp about it. Okay, please note this distinction because I don't want to hear any emails about this. Okay, you can acknowledge your mistakes, take accountability without beating yourself up into a shame spiral. And the fact that you are acknowledging it and feeling sorry, and that you are taking steps to listen to this podcast, take meaningful steps towards healing, means that you are different from the people who have hurt you. And you should be proud of this. We can apologize, we can take responsibility, we can make amends and make new choices. I shared with you in the last episode about how I was a terrible girlfriend. I was emotionally abusive to my first healthy boyfriend. And I've since apologized. I've made amends. I did the work that was necessary to become a better version of myself. And there is nothing to feel even worse about from what you already feel. I hope that was helpful to hear. There's a lot more than these four, but these four specific behaviors are the immediate things that came to mind. So now I want to talk a little bit about the call to action. And the main thing before I get there is shame is like a virus. If you keep it inside, it will slowly fester and slowly kill you over time. And I am not exaggerating here. Shame is a killer. You can't keep this shit inside you. Excuse my French. Because it only feels shameful if it hasn't been normalized in your circle. But once you have a space to be able to talk about it, get it out, and process it, you realize, oh, everyone here has been through that, has felt that way. And when it's through power in numbers that we can truly forgive ourselves and take healthy accountability and steps towards change. But shaming yourself is not going to help you get there. Finding the right people and mentor and safe places is medicine. Connecting with people is medicine. Disconnecting yourself, isolating yourself is poison. And I really mean it. If you don't start getting help for this and talking about it, it's not just going to stay the same. It's actually going to get worse, right? And then you will really, really get into your head and spiral about this. But you have the power to take that first step because we've all been exactly where you are. You are lovable, you are worthy, and you can do this. I believe in you. So here's my 3 call to actions. Number 1, I highly recommend first listening to stories of other people who were similar to you, because when you hear their stories, it starts to break the stigma of these past dating decisions and you start to feel like you're not alone. And I have a whole podcast full of these, but just to make it easier, I'm just going to list off a couple of episodes where I have interviewed other people with a variety of different backgrounds that I really recommend listening to so that you don't feel like you're the only person in this world who deals with it. So most recently, episode 139, From Divorce and Depression to Dream Relationship with Dr. Buzzini. Episode 94, From Closed Off and Paranoid to Secure and Loved. Episode 87, Escaping Hot and Cold Serial Monogamy with Carla. And episode 82, Healing from Sexual and Spiritual Abuse with Carlin. So those are just 4 to get started. I picked these ones because these people have all come from different walks of life, whether it was abusive relationships, divorces, growing up in a cult, for example, and it really helps to start breaking the stigma. Okay. Call to action number 2. Talk to someone that you feel is safe to open up about this. It could be a friend. It could be a therapist. It could be somebody that you look up to. It could be a community. But you have to start finding an outlet where there's people that you can truly connect with on a deeper level. And I will also offer that we have our free consultation calls. They're one-on-one where you can chat with either myself or one of my dating coaches in a very private, non-judgmental space, right? Probably the best 30 minutes of your life. You can go to the link in my show notes to register or just go to my website, bygloriazhang.com. We're here for you. There are people out there who are there for you. And as my bonus call to action number 3, if you want to take simple, effective steps towards feeling less shame and more lovable, we still got 3 days left to join the Lovable Woman 5-Day Accelerator, only $12. I'm laughing because it's only $12 for our grand opening, where you also get access to a VIP group coaching session with me, okay? And lots of support there, right? We're building a brand new community, a safe community there. So the grand opening bonus is only if you sign up by the end of this Thursday, August 15th. If you were on the wait list, you should have gotten an email, or you can click the link in my bio, go to my website to sign up. So my loves, that is it for today's episode. Give us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed it, or send it to a friend, and have a beautiful day and an abundant life. I will see you in next week's episode. In fact, let me pull it up. We have a really great episode coming up next week called What to Do If Your Old Patterns Start Coming Back, right? If you start sliding back into self-sabotage, or you find yourself reacting again, what to do when those old patterns are back. So I will see you then. Mwah! Love you all. Thanks for tuning in, bestie. I've got something for you. If you think this show deserves a 5-star review, we'll send you my free Inner Child Starter Kit as a thank you for your support, which contains exclusive wallpapers and resources for you to download. To get your kit, just upload a screenshot of your review on Apple or Spotify to my webpage, bygloriazhang.com/reviews. The link is also in the show notes. There you can also check out my healing sessions and programs at bygloriazhang.com. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, and I will meet you in the next episode. Mwah!